Hello, hello, hello. Hey, fun people. Welcome to Everything Aja. If you're new here, hello, hello, hello. My name is Aja. Here on Everything Aja, I help teachers, elementary teachers, that is, and even homeschool teachers and parents help manage their reading instruction by making reading as simple and effective as possible. And today we are a part of our Chat It Up Saturdays. Woo, woo. So each and every Saturday, we go live and we talk about hot educational topics. So this is a place you can come to share your thoughts and also receive different tips and tricks and strategies that you can immediately implement. And today we are talking about the real reason that so many Black kids and even minority children are behind. So let me just introduce myself. You might be saying, whoa. Such a deep topic. And yes, yes, it is. Unfortunately, this is a topic that so many of us face. It is actually our reality. I know over the summer we talked about just statistically why so many African American children that are like in Title I schools, and we discussed how they were behind and what the data stated as far as typically African American children do not like to read for fun. This time we're actually going to look at it as the the school, almost look at it as a bird's eye view. We're going to be looking at the school system, even within Title I schools. But first, let me introduce myself. You can go ahead and introduce yourself down below in the chat box. Let me know where you are viewing from, and even what do you teach. Greetings, greetings, greetings. So if you are new here, let me just give you a little rundown. My name is Aja. I'm an educational consultant. I have been kindergarten through fifth grade curriculum specialist. Within that role, I was over all teaching and learning from kindergarten all the way through fifth grade, every subject, everything you can possibly imagine. With over 850 children, I was over all the teaching and learning. I've had over 10 years of teaching experience within Title I schools. So when we talk about Title I schools and we talk about, children of color and African American children being behind, know that I've been there. Know that that's all I know. That's all I know are Title I children. And if you don't know what Title I is, that's simply where kids are labeled as free and reduced lunch. So you have a different percentage. So I've been in schools with 100% Title I, meaning that all of the kids were on free and reduced lunch. And I've also been in buildings where it was only a percentage of children that were on free and reduced lunch. So I have seen it all. Also have my reading endorsement and so much more. Well, today we are getting ready to talk about a topic that burns my heart, but is so crucial for us to talk about it, especially as we start a new year. And we're going to talk about the real reason that so many Black kids are actually behind, and it's not because of the child themselves. It's not because of the environment. Believe it or not, it's because of the way that we teach them, the structure behind it. And so hopefully you're going to learn a lot. You're going to sit back and be like, what? I had no idea. And so I want to actually start off by looking at some research. Hey, Keisha. She said, greetings from South Carolina. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we're going to actually start off by looking at some research. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Chat It Up Saturdays. We're going to look at some research as we think about why children are behind, especially our African American children and other children of color. Why are they so behind? Well, I always like to go to research, especially in our Chat It Up Saturdays. And research shows that vocabulary development, phonological sensitivity, that's pretty much phonological awareness, alphabetic skills are extremely strong predictors, pretty much of where children will be later on and how proficient they will be when it comes to reading. And typically, the children that are at a lower percentage of success when it comes to reading proficiency, this means that typically children that are coming from low social economic backgrounds typically are not reading on grade level. We consider reading proficient reading on grade level. So this data shows us that the backgrounds and the background of where children are coming from does play a factor in their success with reading later on. Atlanta, whoop, whoop. ATL, ATL, ATL in the building. So you might be saying, okay, I know that, Aja, I know that, but there's certain things that we cannot change. Unfortunately, especially if you are teaching in a Title One school, you guys let me know if you guys are in a Title One school, you have no control over the environment a student comes in with. Meaning you don't control where they live, you don't control their parents, you don't control what they see outside of school. You have no control over what they are entering your classroom is. You literally are teaching them as a blank slate. And so that means that you can't focus on that. So often I see so many teachers focusing and playing the blame game on parents, playing the blame game on society, playing the blame game on the government. But when it comes to actually closing the gap, we can't focus on things that we cannot control. Let me know your thoughts down below in the chat box. You might be like, but it is a blame game, Aja. It is a blame game. But I like to look at cups half full versus half empty. And if I'm looking at the cup half full, I can only control what I can control. So the only thing I can control is the actual way that we teach, the way that I teach, the way my classroom structures, the way my school is structured, and even the politics that are implemented within the district. And so this leads us into the preventive phase. So because I can't focus on things that I can't control, I can focus on preventing certain things to occur. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we prevent our children from constantly failing over and over and over again? We just saw in the data that kids that have these low, social economic backgrounds are typically behind when it comes to phonics, when it comes to language, when it comes to phonological awareness. They're always going to be behind because their background. So what can I do to prevent this? There are some actionable things you can do. Whoop, whoop. So let's not get so so discouraged already, but you actually can prevent a child from seeing these statistics. And so research also shows us that the majority of children who enter kindergarten um, actually enter kindergarten at risk for reading failure. And I know I talk about that all the time, especially in my free workshop, the 3 secrets to teaching reading without burnout. I talk about that over and over and over again, the importance of getting a child to come to kindergarten on grade level, simply because if they start kindergarten behind grade level, typically they'll become 2 years behind, and then they'll become 3 years behind, and then you have to work 5 times as hard to close in that learning gap. Hey, Brandy's Monroe, Louisiana. Woo, woo. I have some friends from, oh, not friends, family from Monroe. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And so when you're looking at children that are starting school behind, when I say school, I mean the kindergarten and above, they're already at risk of reading failure. And so now we're looking at this lens from a preventative lens. All right, so we cannot control how they come to school, right? We can't. We could sit here all day, waste our entire Saturday talking about what they could do before they get to school. But we can talk about ways to prevent the gap from widening and actually closing in the gap. And so research shows that if children are identified early, so that means early on, and they're given early, systematic, and explicit instruction, particularly within phonemic awareness that's dealing with sounds, particularly, with phonics relating sounds to letters, vocabulary, and also reading comprehension strategies, that we can close this gap if we identify them early and give them that explicit instruction that they need. So there's some hope. Good morning, good morning, good morning. So we have some hope here, y'all. We have some hope here, just because our children are coming from social economic backgrounds doesn't mean that they need to stay behind. It doesn't mean that they always need to be behind, right? And so now now that we have a little bit of hope and we know that what they're missing is to be identified early and then actually given that explicit phonics instruction, and so we can close this gap. And so over the last 50 some years, within our schools, particularly even Caucasian schools and Title I schools, all schools pretty much across the entire US have been doing this thing called balanced literacy. Let me know down below in the chat box if this sounds familiar. And balanced literacy is simply the mixture of whole language and phonics. In fact, it was implemented in order to bridge the two. It's a philosophy of teaching that believes that a child must be balanced to having multiple opportunities to apply strategies. In fact, when you are implementing the balanced literacy model, you'll have guided reading, is where you actually guide children and teach them strategies that they can use independently. And so the entire point of guided reading is to give children strategies so that they can take those strategies and use them during their independent reading time. He said, very familiar, school and district goal. That is very important, especially what I'm about to tell you in a second. Let me know, are you at a Title I school? And so you're going to be like, oh, okay. All right, so sounded familiar, sounded familiar. The other thing that balanced literacy has is shared reading. And this is where the responsibility of reading a text is split between the teacher and the child, or the adult and the child. And so you have opportunities where both parties are actually actively engaged in a text. So that's where you have things like read alouds, close reading, and all of those fall under the umbrella of shared reading, because within those reading experiences, they're kind of bridged together. Okay, it's Title I middle school. All right, all right, all right. And so that's important because I'm about to talk about that in literally 1 second. And so then there's also independent reading. That within balanced literacy, remember, the goal of guided reading is to teach children strategies so that they can use those strategies during independent reading. So you also give children the time to do independent reading as well. All right, so with balanced literacy, the entire focus is really centered around giving decodable and comprehension strategies. You're giving children strategies so that they can implement these strategies independently. So I want you, I know we kind of did just a second ago, but comment, let me know, what are you teaching? Are you still completely following the balanced literacy framework? In particular, also if you're a Title I school, because like she said she's Title I middle school. All right, we're gonna follow a pattern here, because what you're gonna see is that most schools that are Title I or teaching children of color, i.e. African American children, Hispanic children, so forth, are still following this method, this balanced literacy method. And the times have changed. In fact, the way we have teaching the children are changing. Well, what do you mean? What I mean is, although we have been teaching following the balanced literacy framework for so long, we've been following Lucy Calkins, we've been following this method, and what was happening is the gap that we were experiencing was still widening. The gap was not closing in. It was to a certain point. I can tell you that it worked, but there was some things missing there that didn't have the entire picture, because with the strategies that you're implementing, with the framework of balanced literacy, it did not make room for the very thing that the research told us that we needed. Remember, we started off with a few facts. In fact, I started off sharing some facts, and the fact was, when you're dealing with children that are already behind, when you're dealing with children that are coming, hello, when you're dealing with children coming to us already behind, whether they start off kindergarten, a year behind or so forth, They need explicit instruction, especially when it comes to phonics. And so, what was happening is with the balanced literacy approach, the phonics strategies were incorporated and children did not have that explicit phonics instruction. So, what does this mean? This means that over the last 50 years in our classrooms and in our homeschool environments, we have been implementing strategies which are, great and all, but we haven't been giving children the secret sauce that they need to actually tackle unknown words. And so this has created a really large gap. And unfortunately, our Title I schools are behind, and schools that have children of color are behind. In fact, what some of my teachers within my Teaching by Design program, they're just now starting balanced literacy. And now I look at, white schools and white educators, and they have now moved on from balanced literacy. And so it's like, wait, why are we just now getting on balanced literacy? And now they're on to a new thing. And so there's a gap. There's a gap. It's almost like I'm literally watching almost a decade of a gap between the different types of schools. And so you see these Title I schools that the district themselves are already behind. They don't have the knowledge of what to actually implement in order to close this gap. Um, says seventh grade math and science, whoop, whoop, trying to incorporate reading and writing in math with note taking and stations. Oh, girl, yes, yes, yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. So hey, hey, hey. And so you might be wondering, okay, well, what are other schools doing, Gaja? If you're telling me there's a gap and people have moved on from balanced literacy, what have they moved on to? Who knows what everything people go from one thing to another, right? And so there's over the last 3 decades, so 30 years, researchers have been studying how the brain actually learns language. And it has been determined that the brain automatically learns how to speak, that, even as babies, they'll start to learn language, that where our brains will automatically pick up on words, and then over time we'll be able to say those words. However, research tells us that now we have enough research to know that the brain does not automatically learn how to read. So, although a child, there's any child in the world that can automatically learn how to talk, they will not and cannot automatically learn how to read. So, this shows that reading is something that has to be taught, it has to be explicitly laid out for a child in order for them to understand. And so this research has led us to what is now been being introduced within school systems, but not the Title I school systems. You should understand school report cards, yearly district goals is important. Amen, amen, yes to that. And so one thing that has been introduced, especially in the Caucasian schools, in fact, majority of the Caucasian schools all around the US have adapted what they call science of reading. It is an approach to reading with explicit phonics instruction as the foundation. In fact, within science of reading, they don't even do guided reading. They do what they call guided practice. And that allows for an explicit lesson to occur. And when I say explicit, I mean instead of listening to a child read and guiding them to a strategy, you're explicitly saying, hey, this is the ch sound. CH makes a ch sound. Today we're going to read words that have the ch sound, and you are explicitly teaching them that particular sound. In fact, with the science of reading approach, skilled based lessons are the focus. So, lessons centered around certain skills are the focus. And in order to know what the focus needs to be for that day, this is where you have data driven instruction. And so assessments are huge with the science of reading. And so moving forward, you might be saying, okay, but Where's the comprehension? If it's all about phonics, where does the comprehension fall? Well, science of reading actually can be summed up by using a particular formula. And this formula has been scientifically proven in order to really cater to reading comprehension. And the formula is decoding, which decoding is simply sounds, letters, and word recognition. Decoding plus or times. I've seen the multiplication fact both ways. But I've seen it as an addition fact and a multiplication fact, but the facts are still the same. But decoding and language comprehension, when I say language comprehension, I simply mean understanding language, that is language structure, but understanding language and vocabulary with background knowledge. So understanding how words, what words mean, how words are formed. So being able to decode a word, break that word down, and being able to understand the word's meaning will equal reading comprehension. And that's pretty much the basics of science of reading. And so what has happened in education is that children of Caucasian children have now been introduced to this concept of science of reading over the last few years. Over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been really pushed within those types of schools. But yet, the Title One schools or schools that have minority children are still doing balanced literacy. And so there's becoming a not only a gap that we already had, but now there's a gap of instruction. And now there's enough research out there supporting that children need explicit instruction, especially children of color, but they're not getting it. They're still getting this balanced whole language approach to reading. And so research shows, I love this fact, and I wanted to include this, not fact, but this quote. It says, current research has shown that basing our instructional practices and policies on pretty much changing the scientific evidence will actually result in more students learning how to read proficiency. That's the goal. You want our children, especially our children of color that already have so many things against them that they can't control. There's so many uncontrollables coming at them, with society. You have, I won't even go I won't even go to policing and everything else, but they face so many different things already that with reading, that is something that we can now change. That is something that we can now control. We can control our children having the ability to have access to explicit phonics instruction. And so including including this practice of science of reading into our classrooms will allow our children of color to be able to have the same background and using the same scientific research as children without color. And so this is how we even up the playing field. This is how we give our children also the leg up. Right now, the Caucasian children all around, they've been learning a phonics based approach when it comes to reading. They're learning science of reading. They've gone away with balanced literacy, and no, balanced literacy is not all bad. If I actually have an entire video of my own personal opinion on how to incorporate the two, but we need explicit phonics instruction, especially when it comes to struggling readers. And as we know, when we look at the data, a lot of our children of color are already behind. They already don't like reading for fun. They already are statistically scoring less proficient than Caucasian children. And we've gone over those facts before. In fact, I'll drop which video to watch next and where we go and discuss that data, but they're already behind. And so how do we get a leg up? How do we even up the playing field? Well, our children need explicit phonics instruction also. We have access to it now. Yes, surely, back in the 50s, our children might not have had the same access as Caucasian children, but now we do. We have access to explicit phonics instruction. So in order to close that gap and get our children to actually have a leg up, they need explicit phonics instruction. And so this normally typically occurs between preschool and first grade. In fact, the primary age, the primary grades, that becomes the foundation of explicit phonics instruction. Typically, this is where children understand sounds, letters. This is where they understand how to connect the two. And so, this is where the foundation of the phonics instruction that our children need has to take place. It has to take place in primary grades. And so let me know if you are a primary grade teacher down below. Where are all my pre-K, preschool, kindergarten, first grade teachers? But this is what our children need. And fortunately and unfortunately, you probably already have access to some sort of explicit phonics instruction or curriculum. But now I want you to look at your curriculum, go to your administrators, look at the back of the book, and see if it is aligned with the science of reading. Because the science of reading approach has really been rolling out within the last few years. And things that we used to do we aren't best practices anymore, such as sight words. It used to be, within explicit phonics instruction, we taught children how to memorize sight words. That is not a thing. And I've been saying this for years. I've always been like, some of these words can be sounded out. Absolutely. And so now researchers have come together, they've looked at the words, they're like, hey, these words can be sounded out. In fact, if a child only learns this part of the word, the rest of the word can be sounded out. And so look at your curriculum, and I want you to see, is it aligned to the science of reading? Because if it's aligned to the science of reading, then you are actually given explicit phonics instruction. But if it just says phonics, then it is outdated. It's outdated. It's outdated, and unfortunately, it's not going to give our children of color, the leg up that they need, because now there's more research out there. We have more access to best practices. We understand now how the brain learns language. We understand how the brain learns how to read. We understand what to do with our children, and so we need to take the knowledge that we have access to and actually apply it. But then this brings up another point. Okay, not right now. This brings up another point. How do we give struggling readers explicit instruction that they need? So, what happens when you are teaching, hello, second through fifth grade? And now you have children that are behind. Now you have children that never received that explicit and systematic instruction when they were in primary grades. You have children that are in your classroom or your homeschool environment, maybe it's your own child, and they're behind. How do you give those children explicit phonics instruction? Do you just say, oh, well, try again with the next child? Oh, well, we'll try again next year? They're just going to have to fall behind year after year after year. Absolutely not. I'm here to encourage you that it is not too late. Whoop, whoop. It is not too late. In fact, you can give this child what they need. So I want to introduce you to Syllable Boot Camp. Whoop, whoop. And Syllable Boot Camp just allows you to teach any second through fifth grader how to decode unknown words through explicit and systematic phonics instruction using the syllable division technique of breaking down words into syllables. You'll learn this technique and learn how to implement this technique within your daily schedule using only 15 minutes a day. And you'll also have all the tools and resources you need to be successful. This is literally the key to closing learning gaps in upper grades. So we just learned that, when it comes to closing, the gap and providing explicit instruction, we just learned that naturally occurs in preschool through first grade. But for children that have already, been in school, they're already behind. What do we do with those children? Well, this is where Syllable Boot Camp comes in, right? Syllable Boot Camp, I just did. Like I said, it's everything you need to teach explicit phonics instruction with second through fifth grade struggling readers. It is aligned to the science of reading with providing explicit systematic phonics instruction. And so syllable division is a technique used to help children split multisyllabic words into smaller chunks. So if you struggle with getting children to learn how to read on or above grade level, then this is for you. If you lack the phonics support or professional development in order to help increase students' reading scores, then this is for you. If you need or are in need of a phonics intervention for second through fifth graders, then this is for you. Teaching children how to split words into syllables just helps them break down words into smaller pieces in order to sound out unknown or difficult words. And so, in a syllable boot camp is pretty much that. It's an entire system with all of the resources that you need. Pretty much a done for you phonics curriculum for upper elementary. In fact, it has 6 parts. You have addressing and closing learning gaps, creating ongoing phonics support and structure. And then 3 modules are simply centered around the syllable division technique. So you'll learn all 3 spelling patterns like vowel consonant slash consonant vowel, vowel slash consonant vowel, but you'll also learn all 7 syllable types like open and closed syllables, R blends, consonant LE, magic E, and so much more. And then you'll also learn syllable division in action. And so within the syllable boot camp, you also have all of the interactive trainings. These actually are live trainings. So you'll see me actually teach teachers live. So you have all of the recordings of the trainings. It comes with a full 36-week phonics curriculum. You don't even have to do anything. The curriculum is laid out for you. It also has 36 weeks of done for you scripted lesson plans. You don't have to plan a thing. You mean to tell me I can close these gaps and I don't even have to lesson plan? Yes. The lesson plans are completely scripted out for you. You don't have to do anything, they're already scripted out. In addition to the lesson plans, you also have an interactive notebook that already comes with done for you notes. So all your children, whether you're teaching one child or a classroom of children, they will all have their own interactive notebook and all of the notes are done. So you don't even have to waste classroom time putting something on the board, having children copy it. That is a waste of time. I'm giving the children their notes. All they have to do is paste the notes in their notebook. And then you have the lesson plans. And in addition to the lesson plans, you also have the 36 weeks of done for you Google Slides for you to display on the screen while you do the lesson plans. So the lesson plans come with everything you need to say. Then you have the slideshow to do everything you need to display, and the kids have their notebooks to write down everything that they need. And so you have everything you need to implement 36 weeks of explicit and systematic phonics instruction. The other amazing thing about this is that it also comes with bonuses, of course. It also comes with printable phonics rewards, and to keep children encouraged, to keep children engaged, to keep children excited about learning explicit phonics instruction. Because remember, this is for second through fifth grade struggling readers. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning from North Carolina. Whoop, whoop. So glad to have you this morning. So glad to have you. Let me know, what do you teach? What do you teach? In addition to that, you'll also get the phonics syllable types and spelling patterns posters. And so, like I stated, there are 3 spelling patterns and 7 syllable types. Well, you get the posters, the posts around your room. One of the Teaching by Design members that took this boot camp, she actually laminated them and she put them on a ring. I've never thought about this, but she put all of her posters on a ring, and then her kids had they had it to refer back to. And then you get phonics flashcards. So often, with our younger grades, we teach them, letters and sounds, and you might or might not teach them a blend. But when you really look at the science of reading approach, you'll see that they need the diphthongs, the vowel teams, they need all of those things. And so this is where phonics flashcards come in. Having flashcards that already have vowel teams, that already have diphthongs, that already have blends and so much more already done for you. The other wonderful thing about the flashcards is they come with and without picture clues. So if you're teaching fifth grade, you have the ones without the pictures. If you're teaching lower grades, then you have the ones with the pictures. So you're a homeschooler. Okay, whoop, whoop. Preschool through sixth grade. Oh, perfect, perfect. I love it. So you teach everything in there. I love it. I love it. And so we have discovered why our children are behind, and the gap in order to close that gap is getting our children into the science of reading approach to learning, this phonics approach of having explicit and systematic instruction centered around phonics. So while that is being implemented in the lower grades, while that is being implemented in our preschool through first graders, we need to now close the gap within our second through fifth graders. And this is where Syllable Boot Camp comes in. This is how you actually close the gap and allow our children to actually get a leg up and actually be able to, get jobs in the future, learn how to read on grade level. Let's not just keep passing them on from year after year behind. We actually now have the knowledge and power to close in the learning gap. And so this course is for you if you are a teacher, parent, or tutor with a struggling child in second through fifth grade. If you're tired of feeling insecure about your phonics instruction, maybe you don't feel confident, maybe you're always like, I don't know if I'm doing it right. Well, this will allow you to feel confident because you don't have to do anything. It's all done for you. If you're teaching second through fifth grade and you don't have a phonics curriculum at all, this is for you. If you want an easy, done for you system to teach phonics, this is for you. And if you're ready to help your children without experiencing teacher burnout, then this is for you. The other amazing thing right now, as you guys know, you're probably like, yep, it's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, it's the holiday season. But not just because of that, but really truly because I want to help you guys, and I want to help children that look just like me, parents and homeschool parents that look just like me, to succeed, because I've seen this. Like I said, I've been in Title One schools my entire career. Like with over a decade, I've seen children of color just having learning gaps and going from year to year to year. And so that is one of the things that I've been fortunate and blessed to be able to do, is which is close in those learning gaps. And so if you use the code Black Friday, you will get 50% off Syllable Bootcamp. That is only this weekend because of the holidays. Whoop, whoop. But that is the special that is occurring right now. So you can have access to everything, all of the scripted lesson plans, the entire year, 36 weeks. It's yours. The flashcards, there's labels that go with the interactive notebook that you just print. Kids are able to do the system with you. And so there's a system that you'll do with the scripted lesson plans. Everything's already done. So you'll learn how to teach it, and then you don't even have to use that knowledge. You just read the lesson plan, and it is all done for you. So if you use the code Black Friday right now, you will receive 50% off. That is a huge discount, huge discount on this. And so that is also down below in the description. You'll have access to that. Well, I know that I'm tired of seeing this gap. I know that I want our children to succeed. And this is how we give struggling readers that explicit phonics instruction that they need. So I look forward to seeing you inside of Syllable Bootcamp. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Shout out to those that are brand new. If you are new here to this community and you're not yet a member, just go ahead and subscribe. Hey, it doesn't cost you anything. We have a amazing community here. And we are going to really kick off this the end of this year. You'll see I have a lot of new things coming out. I know recently I've been doing Syllable Bootcamp live, and so it has taken up a lot of my time. So you'll be seeing more videos coming out through the end of this year and beginning of 2023. So yes. So hey, from Monroe, Atlanta, we had South Carolina, we had North Carolina, we had everybody today. You said great info today. Thank you, thank you. I'm glad you were able to receive. If you have not caught up on this conversation, we were talking about the statistics of how African American children are behind of Caucasian children. Then you need to watch this video about how and why our African American children are behind and why they don't like to read. So make sure you check out that video, and I will see you guys next Saturday in our Chat It Up Saturday.